Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 183rd episode of our first run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist and finishing off some cooking, I think. So let's start with... I'm just trying to decide how I want to break this down. I'll use a little whist here first. So this is to catch up on what I was supposed to do before the day turn. Oh, actually, right, I need a knife. Well, you know what? Sometimes you need to improvise, and the way we're going to improvise is use Sebastian's swords. Matching 18th century cutlasses, the initials SD are engraved on the blade near the hilt. So there's the game chips for you. We're waiting the 5 seconds for the order, but I think otherwise we are okay. I'm gonna let that run. Carefully mark the creamy paper. Alright, so we've been focusing on almonds. My options here are Sinavine parchment, arsenic, desiccated witchworms, Schloss Jannings, Strathcoyne whiskey, Roscragan whiskey, Raveline wine, Lambic, Armagnac, drinking cocoa, pheasant, plums, beef, and almonds. Okay, so milk it is. I think we'll get a 6th almond. No point in waiting, so we'll go to the servant's kitchen range. Bowl, flour, milk, mixed dough, an ingredient for a higher purpose. For some reason, yeah, we should be fine. Alright. We should be back to a point where we just kind of let everything run, not exactly on autopilot, but just wait for some of these to pay off. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So don't have an immediate need for the impulse, but one thing that is sort of nice about this is that if I did need a whole bunch of nectar at the last minute, I'm reasonably well positioned in terms of just in terms of being able to get some extra points. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is talk to Denzel about the Hive's Lament so we can make a new one. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. I think I said it was going to be 2 beef and a pheasant that I ordered. And then from here, from the hallowed drum... Yeah, we can do that. So in theory, I would say, well, you know, is there a way that I can maybe add memory or application? Actually, yeah, this is a tricky one. Under normal circumstances, I'd maybe say I want to be a little more hesitant to give up the health here, but the alternative would be I use the impulse, which is good, but then the question is what element of the soul do I give up? And then there's only one other option, which is Faust, and I'd prefer to use that at the desk if I can to generate a memory, at least until I know where we're at with the lessons. And I don't think I want to host the salon today. I mean, we don't really know what the guest is, so it could go one way or the other, but in this case here, I don't mind dedicating this desk to invitations, at least as much as I can. Alright, we'll see what the postmistress has me give up. Provide money equal to the cost. Oh, it's not that bad, actually. Complete the order. So here, it's just a question of dragging the typewriter where it needs to be. And believe it or not, yeah, it's always surprising to see this. So in terms of undiscovered, seeing 4 guests, technically one of them we already have in hand, Connie, but through just naturally playing the game, we have yet to see. So I think one of them might be a Zeta. Just trying to see if I can... The problem is that it's... I may know them, but unless I list them off and then compare, I'm probably not gonna... I'm trying to remember who potentially gets taken away by Black Ellie. Is it Yvette? It is Yvette, yeah. Okay, anyways, not the thing we need to worry about right now. So I believe the Salon was going to be Fraser, Daymare, Coquille, Arthur, and Douglas. So Mr. Strathcoyne is an easy invitation. Postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Okay, so simple stuff dealt with first. So I'm going to need to get the knife back at some point, but for now, we will take Denzel and level him up with some health. I'm ready to lend my limbs. Boosts heart, scale, and nectar. Okay, there's Fraser's invitation. We'll refill. Actually, you know what? We can use the same one for Daymare. It's a little overkill, but... This takes twice as long as filling out an order form, but... See, typewriters don't actually improve your speed. I always wondered if there was... So this is a decent example in terms of how something can be a fun idea in your head, but not necessarily a good one for the game. So one of the things that would be kind of interesting is there's obviously the difference between a typewritten and a handwritten invitation. And I'm not going to say a typewritten one is bad, but there's maybe a certain personal touch to the handwritten one that's not present in the typewritten one. And so you could sort of imagine it's like, well, maybe there's a different interaction that you get with a guest based off of a handwritten one where you give up... and this is it, right? Like you can say, well, you know, you're also giving up an ink, so there's a reward for that, etc., etc. All right, looks like we get a free day, which I'm certainly not going to complain about. Actually, that's also a nice... Oh, excuse me. That gives me a nice transition to something I'm going to do in fall, I think. But I'll save that for later. What was I going to say? But yeah, anyway, so like this is one of these things, right, where as a player, or not even as a player, but somebody who really likes thinking about sort of the secret histories setting, and you sort of think about, I think games like Cultist Simulator and Book of Hours are really good for this kind of speculation. But because there's so much, so much of the enjoyment of this game comes from like thinking about what the interactions mean, you can sort of say either from a sense of balance, well, you give up the ink and so you get something special for that, or something in the sense of the personal connection with the character. Hey, wouldn't it be neat if I could have a guest, that appreciates a handwritten invitation. However you want to sort of think about it, you could sort of imagine excitedly sending off an email to Weather Factory saying, hey, you should add this into the game. And of course, the practical side of this would be, as somebody, imagine how you felt when you first played this game, and you all of a sudden find out there's completely arbitrary rules for how you send invitations to guests. That's probably going to translate into frustration more than anything. But I don't know, maybe now I want to learn calligraphy or something. There's really no ending to that. Alright. I am trying to remember if I had a good excuse for not... Oh yeah, we're using up all of the cooking stations. That's a good reason. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. The Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the Grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alokites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. The Queen of the Vistula is poisoned, the Queen of the Dnieper chokes on a fishhook, the Queen of the Tagus is burnt alive. The culprit, it transpires, is the audience. The surviving queens are directed to execute whatever audience members do not escape. A surprisingly lucid epilogue suggests that the correspondence of river names with historical events does provide clues to secret histories behind our own. Observations on the Peacock Door. Naingala of Lagash discusses the Peacock Door, the highest door available to mortals in the Mansus, a rent, an imperfection, an abrasion. Notably, the book is written in Vac, which, by some accounts, is another aspect of the Peacock Door itself. Naingala addresses this by apologizing courteously to the door and the language at the end of every section. The Peacock Door did not exist, Naingala says, in the days when the gods from stone entered the Mansus. They used the fanged key to open the Savage Door, a door not usually available to mortals. Speech, as the initiates of Kion would have it, is a wound. I fear that through that wound the blood of the Mansus flows even now, and that one day speech will be an end to dream. I fear that, but I fear the alternative far more. Gospel of Zacchaeus, an extremely heterodox account of the Nazarene Messiah and his works, describing his ascension to the Mansus through the opening of his body. 7 were the wounds of his body, 7 the doors of the house, 7 the lesser aspects of the hours, and Knock the aspect above all, for the mother of ants is the mother of salvation. The book includes a description of a rite which can be used to raise a corpse to half-life, in memory of he who bled for the wood. But the marginalia claims that the Mother of Ants no longer permits use of this rite. Alright, game chips. I do also need to figure out the drinks at some point. Against the Sisterhood of the Knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the Sisterhood of the Knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the ewe, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the mantis through the peacock door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. Now, I guess the question for me here would be, do I want to try and read any more books? I guess the challenge is that, except for perhaps the music, I'm not convinced that there's anything else for me to make that doesn't get overwritten by the time we... Well, okay, it's not strictly true as long as I pause it 0.7 seconds in advance, but I don't think I need that much efficiency, so we're going to go to the Noctonary. Actually, I may need to come back. Orchids and Narcotics is probably a bit short, yeah. If I had the knife, funnily enough, I might be able to get away with this, but... Yeah, I just want to make a replacement for my pairs. A story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. Graham Greene. So this was the affair of the Grunwald provision. After the dissolution of Grunwald's permanent circus, its assets were disposed of by the Bureau. That was during one of the Bureau's occasional funding crises, and the Grunwald provision sanctioned the sale of the circus's assets for cash, bypassing some of the usual checks for oniric hazard. In hindsight, this has started to look like a mistake. We had Yvette Southey. Dr. Southey had purchased one of the Grunwald articles. What she learnt at Hush House convinced her to dispose of it. Eason, requested by the Bureau to help them resolve the Grunwald matter, came to Hush House seeking ways to protect himself during the process. Mr. Ecdistis resolved to do his best to help a friend who'd purchased cursed items. Father Schaller set off for the Grove of Green Immortals with a restless waxwork after finding what he needed at Hush House to keep the thing contained on the journey. Zachary Wakefield concluded obscurely that in the Grunwald matter he might have enough to understand the possibilities of clarities, conductivities, and ovidic forms, and D.I. Moore set off to resolve the Grunwald problem, buoyed by what he'd learned at Hush House. Okay. Now we make the cake batter. I do like the little mini game that I set for myself in terms of seeing if I can invite all the guests with one sort of desk and typewriter combination. So it's going to be Arthur that... Oh no, actually Arthur needs lanterns, so that's a piece of cake. Also, Auroral Contemplations would have got me the edge anyway, but... Still think it's a fun little side quest, let's say. Dr. Ibn al-Adim, the Alapine, historian, doctor, and above all, traveler. The good doctor has been associated with all but one of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. He was even secretary nunciant of Hush House for a little while, but he has never been on good terms with the Suppression Bureau, and weirdly enough, I don't believe we have him in our Rolodex. Or writing case, in this case. I have enough to craft a letter inviting Douglas Moore to Brandkrug. We'll work alongside one another. Okay. So we've got the Hive's Lament, we've got the Health, we don't have the knife yet, and we get the knife back with the Sacrament Malachite. Normally at this point, I would be feeding him pears or honey. But I'm going to chill out for a little bit here. Just so I can be sure about... I want to make sure that I have enough of the aspects to deliver the shrine. Nothing particular is afoot. Any visitors this season will likely just want a general consultation. So obviously I'll want to resolve things with Denzel before I focus too much on Aladdin, but that shouldn't be too hard for us to resolve. Obviously we'll send these invitations in the morning, and I do still need to work out the drinks, but I'll save that. Alright, there's the Hive's Lament, a buzzing in the skull, a song of pragmatic sorrow. We'll have one more minute for the knot cake, and then 12 seconds. I think the order I might handle this is I'll give Denzel the knife first. Better now. Oh, and we duplicated one of our... why can I not remember which one this was? Salt? Huh. Well, I guess it makes sense, now that I think of it. Okay, Edicts Martial, the precepts of struggle and conflict which drive the cosmic engine of change, sometimes called the Chorovality. The voyages of Furnishon of Oriel, the impossible travels of a sea captain of the late Phoenician era, suppressed throughout recorded history, those who read it were said to disappear. Furnishon clearly visited the Mansus, sailing the length of the Painted River. He also claims to have traveled a sea of finest sand, to have dared the blazing waves of the sun's surface, and to have descended to an underworld ocean lit by lamps of black nephrite. Furnishon's final voyage is to a retirement on a peaceful island across the evening sea, where he identifies a spring whose waters will keep him safe. I'll be forgotten, he declares, and this work my only trace. So, Salt, 3 sea story lessons. Let's see if I can find a home. So, full up here. I just don't remember if we had a salt shelf here. So, fear, gossip, foresight, patterns, hindsight, intuitions, regrets, bittersweet certainty, patterns. Alright, so my overflow space is occupied. We're going to... This is very temporary. I think what I may wind up doing... these two kind of seem like ideal candidates. So in practice, we really only have two... can only have 2 Cheerful Ditties books. And likewise, we technically only have 2 Savage Hymn books and 2 Secret Threshold books. So I'm wondering if there's a way that I can sort of juggle around a few of these things. What I would ideally do is I would find a couple of these cases where I have, you know, like a full shelf like this plus 1, and sort of move, just as an example, say gossip into this room here. And then once I sort of deal with my... like this, I just need to find at some point. I need to read this, but like once I sort of catch up on all of my given books, I think maybe I'll turn this room into part of the library as well. And then obviously this bookshelf's being a bit wasted, and that's partly through... Actually, this is weird. Is it really that easy to solve the satisfaction? All right. In the name of the roots, of the blood, of the buzzing within. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. I mean, maybe I don't need to use the health here. Yeah, we're good. Rouse strange fruit, ripe with both forage and nectar aspect, to burst from the wood. I think any old memory will do here, but... There we go. Recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. So we're back as far as memories go. I am going to want to, maybe not hurry, but I do want to make sure that Denzel gets his nectar before I deal with Dr. Adim. And I believe we are now ready for our cake. Here the core seems to make as much sense. Alright, bake a Cornish honey cake, a dish with heart, lantern, and moth. I did kind of want to think a bit about the drinks, but we're late enough in the episode that it doesn't strike me as something I want to close on. So, it's a tomorrow me problem. I also think it'll kind of solve itself. I might need to make a couple of things, so Evening Isles coffee will cover me for, well, I can at least take a peek. So, Evening Isles should cover me for the Moors, Douglas and Arthur. Coquille will need some kind of grail, so we might need to make another drinking cocoa. Daymare. Oh, yes. Second Flush Assam. I'm going to be very upset with myself if I... Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to want to make some of that. I also should have ordered... Oh, no, we're fine. We've got another packet. Was there another thing I wanted to use the knife for? I think it was the... I think it was the pear. Back in the Dawn period, the Sister to the Triple Knot used this in the rites of the Ringu, the hour, which has also been called the Malachite. I can offer my assistant something to drink. So this is 13, again, I believe of the 14 that I require. Yep, so we'll feed him some honey and then we're good to go. So not really many worries so far as the, well, actually that's not scale, but we got the Strathcoin whiskey, so Strathcoin's good. So yeah, I suppose Daymare and Coquille are the ones that don't have obvious answers, although I suppose for everyone, I do actually need to make the drinks. Actually, I mean, I guess one answer I have here is we take the lambic and put that on the... I don't know, feel good to serve. So you can bring that up from the wine cellar. Which wine cellar? Open question. So I mean, with that in mind, I could also use the Schloss Jannings with... I actually could kind of do that with everybody, now that I think of it. Booze for all. So that was Coquille. Yeah, you know what? Everybody gets wine with this meal. We'll work that out later. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to do it, and then I did. Okay. I will at least get... I'll get Denzil sorted out. Oh, actually, Daymare's still not covered by the wines. I actually think I messed this up because Arthur's going to want edge. He's not going to want... Oh no, they are going to want lantern. Sorry, I keep forgetting Arthur's... yeah. I need to focus. Okay, so Coquille, it's Fraser and Daymare here. So Fraser kind of can have whatever. There's a few different scaly drinks. And then we want to brew the tea. Bring water to the boil. Permit the potential here to express itself. I should actually see if I have other... I know the Sacrament Acite has a high knock content, but it feels a little strange to serve that for a Salam. Okay. Like I said, I'd like to get Denzil up to his, up to the level that I want him at, and then you can worry about the rest later. Down to the Grecians. Offer something to eat. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. So, the air is thick with scents of honey and yew berries, enough to daze the heart and mind. So that's the 14 that we required. Our other option, of course, was heart. And I mean, that wouldn't have been hard either, right? We could just use the Swaddle Thunder and such, but... We've solved the problem, no need to solve it a second time. And I think... Okay, so the one thing that I should have been doing and didn't in between here is I should have been leveling up Pearl and Tide. So we'll get that done now. My best first start would be Gossip and Intuition, given that it's easy for those to get overwritten. I don't have to exclusively use Trist for this, but I need to make sure that I keep either a Moon or a Rose open. So just in terms of overall expectations, in terms of memories from this, I'm going to need 3 for the next level. So, you know, this is easy enough. Maybe what we'll do here is say Stolen Secret. and then prioritize these others. But it is clear that I need at least one more batch after. So I think, excuse me, that's something I'm going to leave for the next session, just simply because that strikes me as the sort of thing that I'll forget between recordings and then wonder why I'm duplicating all of the entries. But this works out reasonably nice as far as timing is concerned, because I've got my 3 levels here. We've got a Salon coming up, so if that Salon provides me anything with Rose or Moon, I can throw that directly into Pearl and Tide. Following that, then it's just a question of, you know, navigating the existing books. So if I've got 3 lessons here, I believe this takes me up to 5. I need to get it to 9, so I need 4 more lessons off of that. And the question is if I have another big one. It's like Radical Measure might be the... Oh, not entirely true. Sevenfold Slaying of the Seven Coiled. I also like that one, so... Although that's Disciplines of the Scar, so that's not relevant to my current interests. So, I think probably the Radical Measure is the next one I go for. That'll probably get me 2. Actually, that's a little bit of a shame. I was really thinking I'd take the Red Book of Brittany and put it into Inks of Power. Then again, there's nothing stopping me from maybe doing something like As the Sun is Coarse. So, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But, in fact, what I'll do here, we'll say Radical Measures next on the list. We'll see where we're sitting for the rest of these. For some reason, I think it's just because I'd worked out a plan on Inks of Power, but for some reason I'm really wanting to retain Red Book of Brittany. But I would say I think we're done for today and in pretty good shape. For next week, we will be opening up the last of the shrines, so the Honeyed Forbidding. We have one more, again, sort of a self-imposed restriction. I'm not opening the sealed vaults until all the others are dealt with, so once the Pulsing Darkness has been handled, then we'll worry about the sealed vault, and the sealed vault. I mean, and those will give me something to work with, right? So if I don't, Grail and Knock, Knock and Scale, and Edge and Knock, except maybe for the Edge, I don't actually have easy answers in terms of how to open those up with kind of, I don't know, free characters. Other than that, we will also deal with the next event. So, or rather the last event. So in terms of the further stories, normally what I've done is I've used the Salon as an excuse to bring all the different characters together to get them to check it out. What that sometimes means is I have to delay the Salon by a day because I'm resolving the event. So in this case, it makes as much sense just to invite the people over, and then, I don't know, we can have a talk, we can, I can give them something to read. There's any number of ways of handling that, but in this case, I figure it's maybe a little more consistent with how I want to be playing. But some books, like we've got 2 in the queue, but a lot of this is going to rest on how the Salon turns out tomorrow, which is going to be the big priority. For some reason, Monday or Wednesday Salons seem to be the big thing. I think I always finish an episode intending to do one on the Monday, and then it always winds up being on the day following. But I'm going to stop babbling. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a nice weekend, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.